You won't believe what my husband made me do. 3 men one night. It was supposed to be a joke, but it almost ruined everything. It was a Friday night, one of those nights when you just want to relax, leave the stress of the week behind, and simply be with the person you love. My husband and I were relaxing at home, drinking wine and talking about random things. It felt like one of those quiet nights when nothing important is expected to happen, but then he brought up something that completely surprised me. He casually asked me if I had thought about being with other men before. At first, I thought he was joking, so I laughed, but then he kept talking. He wasn't just referring to any man, but specifically to black men, 3 of them. My heart started beating fast, but not in a good way. I couldn't process what he was suggesting. Who just says something like that? I looked at him, waiting for some sign that he was joking, but his expression remained the same, completely serious. I felt uncomfortable, to say the least. I thought that maybe it was a strange fantasy he wanted to share, and that we'd soon drop the subject, but he kept bringing it up. At first, they were small comments, playful jokes about what it could be. Then he started making more direct suggestions. He said it could be our most exciting relationship, that it would be a one-time thing that could add a little spice to our life together. I didn't know how to react. What was I supposed to say? Was this some kind of test? As the days went by, the topic kept coming up. It came up in our conversations, and at first I quickly dismissed it by changing the subject or making excuses, but my husband kept insisting. He even started talking about specific men, his friends, telling me they were all good guys and that nothing would happen unless I wanted it, and that it would only be for fun. My stomach churned every time he mentioned it, but I didn't know how to tell him how much it bothered me. Part of me didn't want to start a fight, but another part felt a growing resentment. One night he went even further. He suggested we meet these 3 men, presenting it as if it were no big deal, just a casual get-together with some of his friends. I hesitated, unsure if it was another attempt to pressure me into doing something I wasn't comfortable with, but to keep the peace and not ruin our marriage over what I hoped was just a bad idea, I agreed to go. That night we met his friends at a local bar. The whole time I felt nervous, as if I was walking into a trap. His friends seemed sufficiently kind, polite, charming. Perhaps a little too friendly. But there was an uncomfortable tension in the air. I could sense something beneath the surface, a tacit understanding between them and my husband that made my stomach churn. As the night wore on, the drinks kept flowing and the conversations became increasingly flirtatious. I tried to downplay it with a laugh, but deep down I was extremely uncomfortable. One of the men kept staring at me intently, and every time I felt his eyes on me, a knot tightened in my chest. My husband, on the other hand, seemed totally relaxed, as if he were enjoying seeing me receive all that attention. He smiled at me as if it were a game. Finally, we all ended up at our house. I didn't want to, but my husband insisted it would be quieter at home. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking towards something I wasn't ready for. Once at the house, the atmosphere changed. The boys were sitting on the sofa, but there was a tension in the air. I was in the kitchen trying to keep busy when one of them came in to help me clean. He got too close, he was only inches away from me, and I could feel his breath on my neck as he bent down to get a towel. My heart started racing again, but not in a good way. Then he whispered something in my ear. I couldn't hear everything he said, but enough to know that this wasn't just a friendly get-together anymore. He was trying something, and I could feel the situation slipping out of my control. My husband was in. The other person in the room was probably aware of what was happening, but didn't seem to care. I felt trapped. I tried to ignore it, but the tension kept rising. The man kept brushing against me, making subtle touches to see how far he could go. I froze. Should I tell him to stop? Should I call my husband? But how would that work? My mind was racing with a million thoughts, and my body was reacting in ways I didn't understand. I didn't know if it was fear, excitement, or both. I was on the verge of something dangerous. It was then that I realized how deeply I was caught up in this situation. I needed to get out of the kitchen, out of the house, out of all this. But I didn't know how. Every time I tried to move, I felt like something was holding me back, like an invisible weight was keeping me in place. The air in the kitchen felt thick, almost suffocating. I needed to get out of there, but my feet seemed glued to the floor. The man next to me wasn't backing down, and the way he was looking at me gave me goosebumps. He leaned even closer. His breath was now on my ear, and he whispered something else. This time I heard it clearly, "Looks like you like this." That sentence was enough to snap me out of my frozen state. I quickly backed away, hitting the counter behind me, trying to put as much distance between us as possible without making a scene. My heart was pounding, and I felt my face burning with a mixture of anger and shame. I needed to stop this now, but my mind was in chaos, and I didn't know what to do. I glanced toward the door, hoping my husband would come in and something. I hoped he would realize things had gone too far, but he didn't. It was then I understood he wasn't going to do it. He was the one who put me in this situation from the beginning. I was alone. I pushed past the man who was nearby and headed to the living room where the other two men were laughing with my husband. They didn't seem to notice the tension or the panic I felt. My husband looked at me and smiled, completely oblivious to the turmoil inside me. Or maybe he knew and didn't care. I couldn't say it anymore. I sat on the sofa, my hands gripping the cushion so tightly my knuckles turned white. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened in the kitchen, how close we'd come to crossing a line I wasn't ready to cross. I wanted to say something, tell my husband this wasn't fun, that I wasn't getting excited, but I couldn't find the words. The night dragged on, each moment heavier than the last. The men kept drinking, laughing, and my husband kept acting like everything was fine, but none of it was. I kept replaying the moment in the kitchen, how close I came to losing control of the situation. It scared me, and more than that, it angered me. How could my husband push me into something like that? How could he be so casual about it, as if my feelings didn't matter? Finally, the men got up to leave. I felt a wave of relief, as if a weight had been lifted from my chest. I watched them walk out the door, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe again. But the tension didn't disappear, it was still there, bubbling away. Beneath the surface, after they left, I turned to my husband. He was still smiling as if it had been the perfect night, but I couldn't take it anymore. I had to say something. "What was that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do you mean?" he replied, genuinely confused, as if he had no idea what I was talking about. "That's what I said," pointing toward the door where his friends had gone. "What were you thinking?" He shrugged. His nonchalant attitude only made me angrier. "It was just a little fun. You didn't have to do anything. You wouldn't want to." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You really don't understand," I said, raising my voice. "Is that what you call fun? You put me in a situation where one of your friends harassed me, and you just sat there like nothing happened." My husband's expression changed, the smile disappeared, and for the first time that night, I saw a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. But he didn't apologize, instead, he became defensive. "I thought you liked him," he said. "You didn't say anything, you didn't stop him." That was the last straw. I couldn't take it anymore. How was I supposed to? I didn't know what to do, how he was supposed to react. I yelled, "You're my husband. You're supposed to protect me, not drag me into situations like this." We argued for what felt like hours. Every time I tried to explain how uncomfortable I'd felt, how close we'd come to things getting out of hand, he dismissed it. He kept insisting it was just a fantasy, that I could have stopped it all at any moment. But he didn't understand. He didn't grasp how trapped I felt. I felt how powerless I'd been in that moment. I was trembling when the argument finally ended. My husband stormed off to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room. I stood there staring at the empty wine glasses and the remnants of a night that had almost ruined everything. I didn't know what to do next. I felt betrayed, confused, and deeply hurt. This wasn't what a marriage should be. I sat there in the silence of the living room, my mind racing. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened in the kitchen, how close we had come to losing control, the way my husband. He just stood there laughing calmly with his friends. It made my stomach churn. How could he not see how dangerous what he was doing was? How could he push me? Something so reckless? I couldn't stand the tension in the air any longer. I got up and went to the kitchen, hoping that the simple act of cleaning would help me calm down. I grabbed the wine glasses, trying to concentrate on the task, but my hands were shaking and my heart was still racing. I relived the night in my head, piece by piece, how I had. He asked me to participate, like his friends looked at me as if I were something they could take if they wanted. And then the moment in the kitchen when that man came near and whispered things that made me feel disgusted. I felt trapped, cornered. It was as if I had been frozen, unable to move or speak. I hated myself for not confronting him sooner, for letting things go so far. I finished washing the dishes and looked out the window into the darkness outside the house. Now the house was silent, but it didn't feel peaceful. It felt empty and cold. I knew I couldn't let it go. Something had changed between my husband and me, something that couldn't be ignored or hidden. He had crossed a line, and there was no going back. I took a deep breath and went to the bedroom. My husband was already in bed, looking at his phone as if nothing had happened. He didn't even look up. When I entered, I stood there for a moment, watching him, wondering how he could be so indifferent to everything that had happened. How he could be so blind to the hurt and confusion that it had finally caused me to reach my breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore. "We need to talk," I said in a calm but firm voice. She looked at me, raising an eyebrow. "What?" she asked, as if she didn't know what I meant. "About what you did," I replied, sitting on the edge of the bed. She sighed and put her phone down. "I already told you, it was just a little fun. You didn't have to do anything you didn't want to." I shook my head, feeling the anger rising again. "Don't you understand? You put me in a situation where I felt trapped. You didn't care how I felt. I felt you were too busy living a fantasy and didn't think about what you were doing to me." He frowned and sat up a little more upright. "I thought you were okay with it. You didn't say no." I didn't know how I responded. The words came out before I could stop them. I didn't know how to say no without ruining everything, without making things even more awkward. I trusted that you would protect me, that you would care about me, and instead you put me in a situation where I almost did something I would regret for the rest of my life. He looked away. His expression impossible to read. For a moment I thought she might apologize, that I would finally understand what she had done, but when she spoke, her words were cold. "You're exaggerating. Nothing happened. You're making a big deal out of something that isn't important." That was it. I couldn't go on with this. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, that our marriage was okay. She had pushed me too far, and there was no going back. I stood up, grabbed my phone, and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" her voice asked, now sharp. I stopped. Standing in the doorway with my back to him, I needed space. I needed to understand what I wanted because right now I didn't think I could go on with this. He said nothing, and I didn't look back. I left the bedroom, walked down the hall, and went out the front door, breathing in the fresh night air. As I stood there taking deep breaths to calm myself, I realized something. I had been so focused on what he wanted, trying to please him, that I had completely lost sight of what I needed, what I deserved. I wasn't going to let him. The thought of that happening again as I walked down the street away from the house brought a strange sense of relief. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure: I was done being pushed around, no longer trapped in someone else's game. From now on, I was going to take control of my own life, my own decisions, and no one was going to force me to do anything I didn't want to do ever again.